When you look around at the lives people are living today, it's easy to see a common thread. A pattern of hesitation, delay, and rationalization. People are waiting. They're waiting for the right time, for motivation, for permission, for things to line up perfectly before they make a move. And yet, while they wait, life is moving. The clock doesn't stop. The world doesn't pause to give anyone a perfect moment to start. And this is where so many fail, not because they tried and fell short, but because they never really started at all. Action, not thought, not potential, not good intentions, is what changes reality. You can have all the dreams, goals, and plans in the world, but if you don't act, those things rot. They decay in the silence of inaction. The mind loves to create stories, but the body needs to follow through. The problem is we've been conditioned to overthink everything. We want certainty. We want guarantees and we want comfort. But action doesn't come from comfort. It comes from clarity, and clarity comes from doing. There's a biological component to this too. Every time you avoid something hard, whether it's a conversation, a workout, a risk, you're reinforcing the idea that safety matters more than growth, and neurologically, that becomes your pattern. The longer you delay action, the more your brain wires in that delay as normal behavior. Over time, you start believing your own excuses. I'm not ready, maybe next week. I need more research. But the truth is, you've rehearsed inaction so many times it feels like truth. Now think about the flip side. What happens when you act immediately, even imperfectly? You engage your body, you bring your nervous system online, you build momentum. You start conditioning your brain to move forward in uncertainty instead of retreating. And that's when the chemistry of change kicks in. Dopamine, adrenaline. They're not just about feeling good. They're part of your system's way of saying, we're doing something. Keep going. When you act, you're literally teaching your body and mind to become a mover, not a spectator. People often think motivation leads to action, but it's actually the other way around. Action creates motivation. When you move, your system wakes up. When you see results, your identity starts to shift. And identity is everything. You don't become disciplined by thinking about being disciplined. You become disciplined by doing the thing over and over until it becomes who you are. And the fastest way to start that loop is to do something before you feel ready. Now, let's be real. Most people fail not because they're not smart or capable, but because they hesitate. They hesitate at the moment of decision. That 1 second of pause between, should I? And I'm doing it, is where most dreams die. You've probably felt it yourself. That friction point when it's time to speak up, to apply, to hit publish, to show up. And in that split second, your brain floods you with doubt. But what you do in that moment determines the trajectory of your life. That second is your fork in the road. Act or fail. We live in a time where everything is designed to delay action. Social media gives us the illusion of progress. You watch someone else do it, and your brain tricks you into thinking you've moved forward. But watching isn't doing. Learning isn't execution. Planning isn't momentum. The only thing that counts is what you actually do. And if you're not acting, you're not growing. You're just intellectualizing your own stagnation. There's also this myth that action has to be perfect. That you can't start until you know everything. That you need the right gear, the right moment, the right mindset. But the truth is, the people who win are the ones who start with what they have. They figure it out along the way. They fail, sure, but they learn faster than anyone sitting on the sidelines waiting for the right time. The truth is, perfection is the enemy of momentum. And if you're chasing perfection, you're not serious about progress. This isn't about recklessness. It's about precision through movement. Taking aim while you move. You don't need to know every step. You just need to take the first one with intensity and follow through. Every time you choose to act instead of overthink, you reinforce a new identity. Someone who does, not just dreams. And over time, that identity becomes unshakable. The question isn't, what if I fail? The question is, what if I don't act? Because the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of failure. Failure gives you data. Inaction gives you regret. And the human nervous system is built to process pain, even the pain of failure, far better than the weight of regret. Regret is chronic, it lingers. It reshapes your self-image in silence. But action, even imperfect, releases you. It creates movement, and movement is freedom. So when you hear the voice telling you to wait, to pause, to double check, challenge it, interrupt the loop, act. Do the thing, because nothing changes until you do. People love to talk about motivation. They want to feel fired up, inspired, and ready. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're waiting on motivation to do the hard things in your life, you're already behind. The people who actually get results in business, in fitness, in their mindset, aren't motivated all the time. What they are is disciplined. And the reason discipline beats motivation is because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It just shows up. We live in a world that rewards speed, distraction, and emotional comfort. You're trained from an early age to chase the next dopamine hit. Scrolling, clicking, consuming. Everything is fast, easy, and feels good in the moment. But the life you want, it doesn't live in the easy or the fast. It lives in consistency. It lives in repetition. It lives in doing the thing, especially when you don't feel like it. And that's where discipline steps in. Discipline is not a trait you're born with. It's not some rare gift. It's a system, a practice, a choice you make over and over until it becomes embedded in your nervous system. Every time you get up when you'd rather sleep in, every time you focus when you want to drift off, every time you show up when no one's watching, you're not just getting something done, you're wiring your identity into someone who follows through. And the science is clear: repetition shapes biology. The more frequently you engage in a behavior, the more your brain and body adapt to support that behavior. This is how habits are built. Through direct, consistent action. Your brain actually carves out pathways that make it easier to do what you've done before. So the first few times you push through discomfort, it's going to feel unnatural. It's going to feel hard. But that friction is a sign that you're changing. If you stay with it, that discomfort becomes neutral. Then it becomes familiar. And eventually, it becomes automatic. Think about this when you brush your teeth in the morning. Do you have to hype yourself up? Do you need a motivational video to do it? No. You just do it. That's what we want with the hard things in your life. We want them to become default. Whether it's getting into the gym, showing up to build your business, staying locked in when distractions hit. The goal is to strip away the drama and make action the baseline. That's discipline. No story, no hesitation, just execution. And what gets in the way of discipline more than anything else is the modern addiction to how we feel. If you let your emotions drive your decisions, your standards will always fluctuate. One day you're all in, the next day you're negotiating with yourself. You don't feel like it. You're tired. You had a rough morning. And suddenly, The thing that was supposed to be non-negotiable becomes optional. That's how most people live. And it's why most people never make it past average. Now here's the kicker. When you practice discipline consistently, your physiology begins to support it. Your energy systems become more efficient. Your focus sharpens. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. You build what's called a stress-resilient nervous system, one that doesn't get hijacked every time things get hard or uncertain. And when your system is trained for that, you stop reacting to life and start directing it. Discipline is also deeply linked to time perception. People who lack discipline often feel like they have no time. They're overwhelmed, scattered, reactive. But disciplined individuals actually experience time differently. When you structure your days with intention, your brain stops burning energy on what to do next and starts channeling that energy into execution. You don't waste time deciding because the decision's already made. And that sense of control over your time feeds your momentum. It's also worth noting that discipline frees you in a way that motivation never can. Motivation makes you a slave to your mood. Discipline liberates you from it. You don't need to feel good to do what needs to be done. You just need to be aligned with your standard. That kind of freedom, the ability to act regardless of emotion, is rare, but it's trainable. It comes from repetition, structure, and identity. You build that identity by stacking small wins, not by trying to overhaul your life in one day, but by showing up with precision and consistency. When you say, "I'm the type of person who gets up early," and then you actually do it, that's identity in motion. When you say, "I don't skip workouts," and then you train even on the days you don't feel like it, that's discipline writing your story. And every day you honor that, even when no one's watching, you're etching a new self into your nervous system. Eventually, discipline becomes your foundation. It becomes the thing you can count on when everything else is uncertain. And here's the true thing in a world that constantly pulls your attention in every direction. The most powerful thing you can build is the ability to keep your own promises to yourself. Because if you can do that, there's nothing you can't accomplish. You stop chasing intensity and start trusting consistency. You stop relying on hype and start building a system. You stop needing the perfect moment, and you start making every moment count. Let's address something that's hard for people to admit. Most of us are quicker to judge the messenger than to actually listen to the message. We live in a culture that's hypersensitive to tone, language, delivery. If something feels too blunt, too aggressive, too different from our emotional comfort zone, we dismiss it before we've even heard it. But here's the thing. Truth doesn't care about tone, and progress doesn't require emotional approval. The question isn't whether you like how it's said. The question is it useful? There's a reason some messages cut through the noise. It's because they're not softened to make you feel good. They're designed to snap you out of patterns, to interrupt comfort. And when someone like Andrew Tate comes along with an intense, unfiltered delivery, people have two reactions. They either get triggered and write it off, or they zoom in and ask, what's the principle behind what he's saying? And that second group, the ones who seek the lesson instead of the drama, those are the ones who grow. Now, I'm not here to endorse personality. I'm not here to tell you who to like or who to follow. That's irrelevant. What matters is whether the core message has value. And stripped of all the noise, here's the heart of it. No one's coming to save you. Your results in health, career, relationships are on you. not your boss, not your parents, not your friends, not the government, you. Either you take responsibility or you hand it off to someone else. And with it, you hand off your power. We've built an entire culture around outsourcing blame. We blame circumstances. We blame genetics. We blame timing. We create an entire identity around why we can't. But the more you externalize your problems, the more powerless you become. You get addicted to the narrative of why things are hard, instead of getting addicted to the process of doing hard things. And that's the difference between those who grow and those who stall out. Ownership. This is where controversial figures often serve as a mirror. Because when someone speaks in absolutes, when someone pushes personal responsibility with intensity, it reveals people's reflexes. Do they defend their excuses? Or do they confront them? Do they shut down? Or do they get curious? That moment of friction is powerful. It's where the most valuable self-inquiry lives. Why does this hit me so hard? Why am I so reactive? Is it because the content is wrong? Or is it because it's confronting a part of me I've been avoiding? And that's the biology of change right there. Growth doesn't happen when you feel comfortable. It happens when your nervous system is challenged, stretched, forced to recalibrate. If a message shakes you up, pay attention. That's energy, that's movement. That's your system trying to figure out whether it should defend the old or evolve into the new. Don't silence that signal. Use it. You have to understand the people who change the world in any field rarely speak in a way that makes everyone feel good. They speak in a way that disrupts passivity. They speak in a way that demands attention. And when you strip away ego, what you find underneath many of these aggressive messages is a consistent principle. You are in control of more than you think. And you are capable of more than you're currently doing. That's not a judgment. That's an invitation. An invitation to take yourself seriously. To stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. To stop demanding that the truth be delivered gently before you act on it. Because if the message is true, it doesn't matter how it's wrapped. What matters is what you do with it. Now, some people will say, but there are better ways to communicate. Sure. And there are also more polite ways to stay stuck. So ask yourself, what's more important? Feeling validated or being transformed? Growth is rarely comfortable. The tools that change us often come packaged in discomfort. It's biology. The nervous system doesn't adapt in ease. It adapts under pressure, under stress, under challenge. So if a message pushes you, don't retreat. Lean in. We've become so skilled at filtering out what we don't like that we've forgotten how to extract what we need. You don't have to agree with someone to learn from them. You don't have to like someone to be impacted by them. You just need to know how to listen for signal in the noise. That's maturity. That's growth. That's what separates someone who watches life from someone who builds it. So the next time you hear something that rubs you the wrong way, pause. Ask yourself, is there truth in this that I'm avoiding because of the delivery? Is there a challenge here I need to face instead of defend against? Because if you can learn to extract value from messages, even the ones you don't like, you become unstoppable. You stop looking for comfort and you start looking for leverage. You stop waiting for things to feel good and you start moving toward what makes you stronger. And that's the shift from sensitivity to strength, from reactivity to resilience, from judgment to ownership. People spend so much time worrying about the consequences of failure, but very few stop to think about the cost of inaction. And that's where the real damage happens. not in trying and falling short, but in sitting still while time moves forward without you. It's easy to convince yourself that waiting is safe, that staying in the familiar is smart. But the truth is, there's no such thing as staying in place. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're either moving forward or you're falling behind. Life doesn't hold still, and neither does your potential. The nervous system is designed for adaptation, for response, for motion. When you stop moving, physically, mentally, emotionally, your entire system starts to dull. Your ability to respond, to create, to push, it all weakens. And the most dangerous part is, it doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in tiny choices, day after day. You don't feel it at first. You miss one workout, skip one opportunity, silence one instinct to speak up or step forward, and it feels like nothing. But repetition builds identity, and those tiny acts of hesitation stack up until one day you wake up and realize you've rehearsed your own stagnation so often, you've turned it into your life. This is the hidden cost of inaction. It's not just the opportunities you miss. It's the version of yourself you never get to meet. The confident one, the fit one, the leader, the builder, the one who didn't second guess everything. That version of you only emerges when you act, when you move, when you take the risk instead of rehearsing the excuse. And every time you hesitate, you move one step further away from becoming that version. Your system needs pressure to grow. That's how it's built. Muscles grow through resistance. Confidence grows through exposure. Resilience grows through recovery from stress. If you avoid all challenge in the name of comfort, you're not protecting yourself. You're weakening the very system designed to help you thrive. You're starving your potential by playing small. And people say things like, well, what if I fail? But here's the reality: failure is loud, yes, but inaction is quiet. Failure teaches. Inaction numbs. When you fail, at least you get feedback. You get data. You build anti-fragility. You get tougher, smarter, more calibrated. But when you stay still, nothing happens. You don't even know what you're capable of. You stay locked in a loop where the mind spins and the body decays. No movement. No real growth. Just the illusion of safety. The mind will always try to rationalize inaction. It's a protective mechanism. It tells you, well, do it later, or let's wait for more clarity, or it's not the right time yet. But here's the thing: clarity doesn't come before action. It comes through action. You get feedback, you recalibrate, you refine. But none of that happens unless you move. You can't steer a parked car. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets to break the inertia. Your system gets used to being idle. Your identity starts to form around avoidance. And eventually you stop believing you're capable of acting at all. You know what's worse than fear? Regret. Because fear is temporary, it shows up before the leap. But regret, that lingers. Regret wakes you up at night years later, wondering what could have been if you just said yes. If you just raised your hand, made the call, took the shot. People don't look back on their lives wishing they hesitated more. They look back and wonder why they didn't trust themselves when it mattered. The most tragic part of inaction is that it doesn't always feel painful, not at first. It disguises itself as comfort, as safety, as a smart decision, but deep down you know. Your system knows. It's wired for progress. And when you're not growing, not pushing, not stretching, your body feels it. The restlessness, the dissatisfaction, that low, great anxiety that something is missing. That's your nervous system asking for motion, asking for challenge, asking you to step back into the driver's seat. Action reclaims agency. Every time you act, even if the result isn't perfect, you reinforce the belief that you can direct your life. You remind your system that you're in control, not just responding to circumstance. That's how momentum is built. One decision, one action, one rep, one conversation, one leap, and suddenly the system starts to shift. The biology follows the behavior. You don't need a perfect plan to start. You need movement. The courage to act when it's uncomfortable. The willingness to take a step without knowing how the whole path looks. That's where confidence is built. Not from thinking, not from talking, but from doing. It's the accumulation of evidence that says, I act, I move, I go. And once that becomes your pattern, it becomes your identity. Someone who doesn't wait, someone who moves, someone who chooses action even when it's hard. So ask yourself, what are you losing by not acting? What version of you is being delayed every time you wait? Because the cost of inaction is never obvious in the moment, but it compounds over time. The dreams you bury, the instincts you suppress, the strength you never build, that's the price. And it's far too high to keep paying.